You know, there's a lot of research right now out of the Education Trust about 2 teachers in a row who are less than average, a child never recovers. With the current situation where you have schools being labeled, certain schools have had trouble, they have a more challenging population, there's sort of an inherent disincentive for teachers to go to those schools. And so we have a really difficult time sometimes attracting teachers to some of our students who need them the very most.
Well, let me push you a little bit, because I think we need more than grace. As you guys know, we've had lots of disincentives for great talent to go to underserved communities, inner city, urban and rural, and few incentives. So if we were as a country systematically trying to get the best and brightest to go where they're most needed, what would that take? What would that look like? If you pick you have how many schools? 100?
105.
So take your bottom worst 5 schools. The bottom worst 5 schools, if you wanted to transform what was going on there, what would that look like? What would need to happen?
Well, that's the work that we're actually doing right now, and we're using a site empowerment model, and where we have very high expectations for our schools, well above standardized testing. They incorporate the 21st century, and we call them sustainable outcomes for all children, meaning that they don't just learn them for 5th grade, they learn them for always. And so we also have engaged in the talent transfer initiative, where teachers who have been successful in working with more challenging populations were given a $10,000 incentive to go to a more challenging school. And it was very interesting because many of our teachers declined and did not accept it. It was going to be $20,000 over 2 years. Many declined and said no thank you, many times because of the loyalty to their current school, and that educators are not motivated by money. Obviously it helps, and we certainly want to pay our teachers what they're worth, because we're not doing that right now. And we're not going to attract the very best teachers to our Arizona schools if we don't start paying them accordingly. But I think that there needs to be financial incentives for teachers who choose to go to more challenging populations and are successful there. And we need to empower them in those systems. The other thing that's happened is when they choose to go to those schools, those are the most tightly controlled schools in the state. Those are the places where the state is telling you every book that you have to use, every lesson that you have to do, and the most talented people aren't interested in that. The most talented people are interested in freedom to use their professionalism. And so I think there also needs to be a component where if you say, yes, I'll go, and I'm a talented teacher, you're also saying, I'm empowering you to do what's best for these children, and we're not going to tell you what to do.
I'd love for the superintendents to talk to again, think about your top 2% of principals and have the conversation with them. What would it take for them to go, your top 2%, to go to your bottom 2% of schools?
I think it's, as Liz mentioned, it's there is a monetary issue that can help. It's also the freedom to hire and select staff, go around regulations, rules, etc. And then the district intervention, the freedom of the district requirements that might be in place would also, I think those 3 things would, I'm certain they would allow me to recruit.
Can I say from a teacher's point of view, while the money is important, it's also about personal growth. And while we use student achievement data for retention and growth and what have you, teachers still need to have that opportunity for professional development, and they need mentoring, and our young people need to be part of something, not thrown out there like many times. Everything's about test scores, and we know children and teachers are more than a test score. And so if we could have a balance so that we are using information as far as how our students are doing, but this is a very human thing, so humans need to know that they're valued and that they have the opportunities to grow as an individual and in their profession.
A lot of times we have the perception that the communities need to become part of what it is we're doing. We need to flip that paradigm so that we understand that the schools and the larger school districts become part of the communities that they represent. And they understand the cultural wealth that exists within those communities and draw those things into the sites and use those as artifacts through which our children learn. In communities of color, we need talented people to come in who are willing to empower students, parents, and community, who are willing to work in collaboration with those people. We have to be able to say, these are the new talents we're looking for. People who are willing to come in and empower communities, empower students, empower parents, work in collaboration, build new futures together, create new visions together. That's what needs to happen. Those are talented people.
because many other schools are being labeled now as underperforming, and they're getting into all kinds of. So No Child Left Behind at least brought out the subject, but the way that the labels are and the way that the assessments are, as you've been hearing throughout, has really also hurt us, because now they're trying to push these kids through quickly without really giving them the content and just trying to get them to pass the test. And it's about is passing this test, and the kids are no longer really learning the content and what they need to do to succeed. So I think we need to take a look at that, and also the funding. Most of the funding that is in Title III, is for getting the teachers to become better bilingual teachers, et cetera, but because we're trying to push these kids out of bilingual education, most of them are ending up in Title I because they're still behind in where they need to be, but we don't have the funding in Title I to help out with getting the teachers trained in bilingual education.
Last thing I'd say is that, as you guys know, we have unprecedented discretionary resources, $4 billion raised to the top, $3.5 billion school improvement grants, which is all about turning around underperforming schools. Teacher incentive fund is coming, which some of you guys are already participating in. Invest in Innovation Fund, $650 million. Think about putting your best foot forward in all of these. Think about really absolutely competing. It's going to be, it's going to be competitive. It's going to be rigorous. But we want to invest unprecedented resources in states, in districts, and nonprofits that are closing the achievement gap and raising the bar for all kids. Thanks.
Just wanted to thank
Yeah,
you again for
thanks for
visiting
hard
Ochoa,
work.
and I hope you get the chance to visit the studio and
Yeah,
some
well,
of the wonderful
we're
classrooms.
trying to pop our head in real quick. God, this is gorgeous.
And part of our studies this year in kindergarten is they are studying their identity.
Who's the teacher here?
Pauline Baker.
Is this your home?
This is Pauline's home.
I love your home. Holy cow, this is gorgeous. Yeah.
The entire garden area is going to be filled with 4-year-olds, their families, and extended family, and we're planting our fall community garden.
Right, wow.
And we have
Hey, good morning, guys. Letters and hopes and dreams. Anybody want to read their letter? Let me hear it.
Dear President Obama, we are so honored to have had our Secretary of Education, Mr. Duncan, visit Ochoa Elementary School in Tucson.
Well, we have to make sure every dollar is spent wisely on the stimulus dollars in the Recovery Act. $1 billion have come into the state, and huge investment. What we tried to do is really stave off an education catastrophe around the country due to the very tough economic climate. So we got to make sure every dollar is spent wisely and making a difference in students' lives. And if not, we just perpetuate the problem.
The No Child Left Behind thinking was a really top-down, oppressive kind of thing for schools that were having difficulty. TUSD's model of empowering the school to transform themselves and meet expectations through really progressive accountability measures is really different from that. And this school is such a great example of why that works and how how quickly it works. When you empower educational professionals, you give them the expectations that you have, you hold them accountable for it. They do most amazing work, more than you could have ever expected, and Ochoa is a great example of that. So I wanted Secretary Duncan to see just what is possible in education when you think about things differently than we have for the past 5 years. And I think that the future of TUSD is all about meeting the needs of our students, and I think our students are really excited about it. In fact, when I've talked with students on my advisory, they're really excited about it, and they say things like, wow, if we knew you were doing this, we would want to help. We're so excited about what you're saying, it's right on the mark. So that's my message to students.